Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Here we go. Your dial is set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being with us in class today. Jason's engineering the broadcast. I'm Vincent Finelli. Kurt Wilson is joining us, the armchair survivalist. Welcome, Kurt.
What's happening, Vinny?
Well, you know, I was just chatting with Jason before the broadcast, and I asked him if he ever heard of Amos and Andy. You know, the might as well start off politically incorrect, right? So, class, Amos and Andy were two radio comedians, if you will. They had a radio broadcast. The original one started in 1928. And it ran through 1960, and it was voiced by two white actors, Freeman Godson and Charles Correll. And, you know, frankly, it was quite the sensation. The Great Depression, the first one, was put on hold whenever Amos and Andy came on the radio, because radio was a big thing. It was the thing back then. And when their show came on every day, everybody would stop and listen to it. But I was thinking about Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben, Amos and Andy. I guess they're all going in the dustbin because of the political incorrectness.
Oh, yeah. Just like in Sacramento when I was a kid, there was a restaurant, and there was a chain of them. And it was, and now I don't even remember it.
Are you going to tell me the name Sambo's?
That's it. Sambo's. And it was an Indian kit, a little Hindi, and that was their logo. And the Democrats got real upset about that because he was black, and they said, "Well, that's racist." And Sambo said, "What are you talking about? That's not racist." So they changed it to Denny's, and that's where it started. But it actually started before that. By the way, Amos and Andy had a TV show also.
They did.
They were on television, because I used to watch them. In fact, they were on TV from 43, well, actually for 5 years, 55, to 60. It's somewhere around there. It varies. I used to watch it all the time. I had no concept. It's a story about these two black guys that want to get rich, or, they want to make a living, and they come up with all these different ideas and screwed most of them up, and their wives basically kick their butts and get them straightened back out all the time. And we didn't think black or white. We just thought they were funny. So,
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I never thought about Aunt Jemima or Uncle Ben as racist in any way. It didn't encourage me or discourage me from buying the product. I didn't say, honey, this has a black guy on the box. We're not going to buy that. Or, honey, this has a black guy on the box. Let's buy this one. It was, to me, it was neutral. It was based on what the contents
was. The very first black woman to be used for major advertising campaigns. She became very well off, and she hosted and started all kinds of organizations that helped people, not just blacks, but whites also. This is, I don't know. This, I think I'm going to go out and buy as many Aunt Jemima syrup bottles as I can. And,
they're going to be collector's items.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know.
Well, it's. I just read that the Fed controls, believe it or not, the currency. They don't mint the currency, but they control the distribution of the currency. And the Fed is now, if I read this properly and correctly, the Fed is going to restrict the dispersing of tokens, also known as coins. They're going to limit the release of coins to circulation. Now, I'm not sure exactly why that is, but, those who are interested in, keeping collector's items like pennies, maybe in 20 years you can say to your grandson, what do you think this is? I don't know, Grandpa. What is it?
Well,
what is that thing?
Trump put the Fed under the control of the Treasury Department, which I didn't understand. I mean, he just did it sort of offhanded, and he very simply said, "Okay, it's an executive order." I mean, he did it like this: "Here's an executive order. I'm just putting the Federal Reserve under the control of the Treasury Department." Okay, let's go have coffee. I mean, that's as simple as it was. So I don't know what's going on. We know why they want to do that. They've always wanted to control commerce, and I'm an expert at that. And you and I have talked about that. This is how the deep state controls people, businesses, organizations, governments by commerce. So they get rid of the coins, and everything that's done for us, quote unquote, done for us, is a double-edged sword. Yeah, I don't like carrying around pockets full of change, and I think it's stupid when you buy something that says $12.99 for crying out loud. Just call it $13. On the other hand, that's just the camel's nose under the tent, and they're starting with that, and then, well, they already started with the $1,000 bills years ago. Remember those?
You mean getting rid of them? Well, there also was a $5,000 and a $10,000, and I believe there might have even been a $100,000 bill.
There is a $1 million bill also out there, but that's under government control. They got rid of the 10,000 down to $500 bills and left the hundreds there. And they claimed, well, only people who would want to have that much cash on hand would be criminals anyway. And then they passed a banking law that said anybody that has $10,000 in cash can be arrested. So and the money taken. So this is just another step on it. This is just another rung on the ladder. I got to tell you. I got to tell you.
When I first, one second. When I first,
Atlanta, what's happening in Atlanta right now?
Okay, we have Kurt. We have Arjun in New Jersey on the line. We weren't going to take calls today, but Arjun, welcome. You're on with Kurt Wilson and me.
Howdy.
Hey, Vince. Hey guys. So you guys were just talking about, I had a quick comment about China, but I will come to it. But you guys were talking about racial problems, just I overheard when I called. And I am actually not white, I am brown. And I've never felt any racial problems here in this country. So I mean, I just want to say that, when I didn't had any skills, then I was not able to get jobs. Then in that time, at that moment of time, I used to think that it's because of the racial divide and things like that. But no, when as I moved along, as I gained skills, wherever I went, I got jobs, and what I found was white people have the biggest heart than any other race, because they are willing to work with you, they are willing to work alongside you. And what I've seen, if you go to some place where there are places places that are dominated by, let's say, Indians. I was Indian, so places that are dominated by Indians or by Chinese, they will only hire Chinese guys. But that doesn't happen with white guys. If they are in the interview panel, they will hire any race. But with Chinese guys, I have seen that they will only hire Chinese people and they will only promote Chinese people. Similar thing happens with Indian races also. Some places I go, they only hire Indian people, and only and with that also they only hire from the region from where they are. So that's and that's how the promotion happens. So
I have a question for you. I have a question for you.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, how long have you been in America?
Around 18 to 20 years.
Okay, so have you realized yet that the mainstream media has been brainwashing you or trying to and teach you that whites are racist?
Well, actually, this is my personal experience, and that's why I say, and I used to tell my father this thing, that the biggest heart that any race has, it's only white.
Exactly. We give, Americans give more to benefit other nations more than any nation on earth. And yeah, you got some smart asses in the white race, just like you have everywhere else. But I have stopped on Texas highway when it's 110 degrees and there's a black woman who got a flat tire. We have stopped, changed the tire for her, and got her on her way. Mm-hmm. So the majority of us don't have a problem with that. But we have a problem in the United States with the media and the Democrats and the rest of the creatures like that are trying to convince everyone that white people are the cause of everyone's problems.
I think the actual racist people are actually blacks and like Chinese and Indians or any other race that actually come from outside. They are the actual racists.
Yeah,
that's just my position, But I want to talk about like China. Like on June 15th, what happened? China came in border, like there is a line of control. China shares border with India, like it's like 480 kilometers of border. And on June 15th, they came and they actually killed like 30 Indian soldiers. And they are not declaring how many casualties that they had. So what happened initially, from May 5th, they came on the border sides of China and there were like talks that were going on with the officials, with all the officials and everything. So there are 3 points there, like it's called a patrolling point. So patrolling point 14, 15 and 17. It's in Galwan Valley in Ladakh. Now the temperature there is like close to minus 30 degrees centigrade and it is at 10,000 feet above sea level. Currently it's not that, the temperature is not that much. So they agreed that like the talks were happening and they agreed that they will go back from this patrolling point 14, 15 and 17A in this Galwan Valley. And so Indian soldiers came along and they said like, okay, you have to go back. So they went back. They built a structure there. Indian soldiers destroyed this structure. They retrieved back on their line of control. Then what happened in the night time? They came with the clubs and with the iron rods and everything. But and then they killed like close to 30 soldiers there. One colonel was there. And I think they are not declaring, and they declined to declare how many of them have died, how many of their soldiers have died. But like US is confirming that they have seen through satellites that 50 of their soldiers or 40 to 50 of their soldiers have died.
Well, what we have found, the intelligence over there has said that there's been 30 Chinese and about 20 of the Indians that have died.
Yes.
And half of them, because it's very rocky over there, it's the Himalayas. Half of them fell off the mountain. They were literally knocked off the mountain.
Exactly, and I cannot understand. I have worked with Chinese people, and I've seen the music is coming on.
Did you want to hold through the break, Arjun?
Sure.
Okay, all right. We'll be right back. Kurt Wilson's with us, and when Arjun's done, Kurt's going to give us an update on what's happening in his world, and wait till you hear about what's happening economically to people who speak up and speak out. It's quite terrifying. We'll be right back. Kurt Wilson's with us, and Arjun's on the line with us from New Jersey. Arjun, please continue with your thoughts.
Yes. So I'm thinking that there is going to be a war between India and China. I think like it will be a small scale war, but there might be a war that will actually happen here. And I have seen similar sort of techniques that these Chinese people use, like within the organization, like where I was working, they do similar sort of things, like they will try to create problems, like I'm not complete. I've never, throughout my lifetime, I have only seen like one good Chinese guy. I've never seen any Chinese guy who has like a good nature. but I just wanted to share this, and that this is all I have today.
Okay.
Well,
very good.
Just to give you a little bit of feedback on that, Chinese, and that's a problem in the United States. If you go up to a black guy, a red man, a white man, and say, "What are you?" Most of them will say American, one way or another. The Chinese won't. They'll say, "I'm Chinese." Chinese are all communists. That's what China is. They're communists. Communism has as its substructure the concept of anything for me, anything for me, anything for me. Nothing for the society, nothing for people out there. They're not created. Communism does not create beneficial societal members. It creates single people who hate everyone but themselves. And that's why, I have Chinese friends. I wouldn't trust them with my back to them ever. It's just because it's ingrained in them. And this is a generality, of course, because there are people out there, Chinese out there, who were some of my best friends, and I would stake my life with them. But and they warned me about Chinese, communist Chinese. So it's something that we are ignoring. And by the way, that one of the ploys that the Chinese government does is they go into a disputed area and they build something.
Yes.
And then they claim that that area is theirs because they have their structures on it.
And that's what I think. That's what happened with this clash also. And they have been doing this thing for a very long time. Like they actually attacked. Like initially they attacked India in 1962. At that point of time, India didn't have much weapons. Like there were only 100 soldiers in this region, and they had like 5,000 of force. So they took like that region. It's called like Askai Chin. Like it's like Ladakh's top part. So then after that, what happened? Like agreements were made that nobody will, like whenever you patrol this area, you will not carry any weapon because things can escalate very quickly. So even in clash, even in this clash, nobody fired anything. They came with the rods and they came with the clubs, which had like those like those iron, like needle sort of things in them, so that like
they had nails in them. There were clubs with nails in them.
Clubs with nails. Yes, exactly. And like I think and the things are like they have bought like they spent like $10 billion on Facebook, YouTube, on all this social media, so that like they are not to propagate their propaganda. And
this is what's called Black Lives Matter and Antifa.
Yes.
These are all communist fronts, and we have many of them in the United States, and they've been communist China, communist the Soviet Union have been putting their subliminal propaganda into the United States now for so long that we now have in the United States we have two political parties. We have conservatives and we have communists.
Yes.
If they use the word Democrat or progressive, that's a different word for communist. And they do the same thing. And you can see it in all of these places, except Coeur d'Alene, of course, because we stood up, 1,600 of us stood up and said, "You're not coming into our town." But they use clubs. They use sticks. They use skateboards.
Yes.
This is what communists do.
Yes.
Arjun and Kurt, we have one of our instructors is of Chinese descent or Chinese heritage. He's an American. Mm-hmm. And his name is Mike Ma. M-A-H is how he spells his last name. And his wife, he was married to this lovely lady. She's been to our house, and she passed away. And years later, he decided he was going to find a wife. He's looking all over, couldn't find the right gal. So he went to China. He came back from China. He said, "Can't find a wife over there. They're all communists. They don't know how to think." Arjun, thank you so much for being with us. Kurt Wilson's with us, the armchair survivalist, and we've been talking about the Chi-Coms. And just to put an exclamation point on what we're talking about, New York Post says that the Chinese manufacturer was charged with selling over 140,000 fake KN95 masks. So the article goes on to say, Chinese manufacturer shipped thousands of adulterated and misbranded respirator masks in the United States in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic. And so these 140,000 bogus KN95 masks, similar to the N95 respirators used by healthcare workers that were battling COVID-19. So what they did was these masks were tested, and a 95 mask means it will remove or filter out about 95% of harmful airborne particles. So the Chi-Com version filtered out 22% on average. So I guess they should call them NG22s, like no good 22s. That's what
whenever I was a master gunsmith for 25 years, and whenever I had a firearm that we could not repair, I wrote NFG on it, and you can figure out what that stood for.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, we're talking about substandard Chinese products, and I got to tell you, you look at some of what they do, it's amazing what they can do with paint. They took a General Electric microwave oven, and they were able, the Chinese were, when they manufactured this GE branded microwave oven, they were able to skip the entire priming process and priming the cavity where the microwave cooking is done. They were able to not prime it and then paint it. So they just painted it. And what happens is the paint flakes off and it falls down. Gravity works really well 100% of the time. And the paint would flake off and land in your food, and that crunchy stuff that you're chewing is the paint.
I discovered that years and years ago. I wanted to buy a vise. See, I worked on M1 Garands, and I was changing barrels on M1 Garands, so you have to lock the receiver down hard and have a big wrench. I mean, it takes a lot of effort. So I wanted a big vise. So I went to Harbor Freight, and I bought the biggest vise they had there, and heavy as hell. And I installed it, and I put the receiver of the M1 Garand in there, and I cranked it down, and there was a loud crack. And I'm not exaggerating. A third of the vise fell off.
Yeah, that's common.
It was Bondo, and the whole vise was held together with that thick paint that they use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So really, I've seen these Chi-Com vices. They're absolute garbage. And I wanted to buy a vise, Kurt, and I found one on Craigslist. And I think it was either $55 or $65 for a used vise from, let's say, the 1960s. And I was delighted to be able to buy it, because if you look today, if you went to Sears when they were still around, or any of the other big box stores, they're pretty much all from China, all the vices. Doesn't matter what the brand name on it is, they're pretty much all from China. So if you want to buy a good quality vice, you're going to have to get one that was made in this country many, many years ago. Or Poland, maybe. Poland made some pretty good vices too.
Yeah. Well, that's what yard sales are for.
Right.
You find stuff there. Grandpa died and is selling all the stuff, and he used actual tools.
So, Kurt, I went to your website a couple days ago, and I sent you I don't know if you got it, because I don't know if my emails get out. I certainly don't receive all of them.
You found some security flaw there. Did you check it again?
No, but, you know, it came up when I went to your website. It's like warning from Firefox, the browser said, warning, whatever you do, don't go here.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's a setting in Firefox. What it is that, and this is the problem. I have all my sites. Like, if you want to know anything about my radio show, go to armchairsurvivalist.com. It has the HTTPS for secure in front of it. Okay, so that's an indication that it's a safe website to go to. But I have pictures on there that I had not. I was calling them. You know what that means? You're calling them from when the page shows up. That page is saying, okay, go to this place and pull the picture up for this. Well, where I was pulling those pictures up wasn't a secure site, and I didn't know that. So I thank you for sending me that data. So I went back through there. If you go to armchairsurvivalist.com right now, Benny, you probably won't get a warning. But
I did not. I went there this morning and no warning.
Okay, good. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate you telling me that. So I discovered what the problem was, and I fixed it. But it's a security setting in Firefox. You can change that, but it's fine to leave it like it is. That way, you can tell
Kurt,
people.
What is happening in your world with your business? Is the system angry with you?
First things first, I got to do something else. Okay, we got to because time is of the essence, and we got to handle this Atlanta. You know what's that 11-time loser got shot for shooting a cop with his taser. Just so everybody knows, my son is on a bunch of message boards. You know what Reddit is?
Yeah, tell everybody what it is.
Okay, Reddit is it's like Facebook, but it's a website you go to, and there are thousands of what's called subreddits. Like there's an area you go to and talk about video games. Another one you can talk about frogs. Another one you can talk about firearms. Another one you can talk about whatever. And people have a subreddit for everything. Well, he's monitoring this right now, and there is one subreddit in there that's put out by verified police officers, not just some guy calling himself that. So you have moderators for each one of these subreddits that they verify things. And anybody who posts there is a verified law enforcement officer somewhere in the world. So my son's on there, and he knows a lot of these guys personally. He does all of this crap. I'm more meat and potatoes type guy. He's more in the millennial garbage like that. As of 4:52 p.m. last night, there are 7 police zones in Atlanta. Okay? One of them is the airport. So you have 6 actual police zones. As of 4:52 last night, only one zone was answering 911 calls. And then after midnight, there was no calls whatsoever being answered at 911. In mass, the police departments are quitting in Atlanta. I don't mean 20 or 30 people. I'm talking hundreds are quitting. They're driving their cars to the precinct, walking in, handing them the keys, and walking out. So Atlanta, as of now, has no law enforcement. It has no capability to respond to any emergency situations. So the communists want to know what it's like to have a utopian country with no law enforcement. Go to Atlanta. That's what you'll find. This is happening. You heard me mention, Sergeant, that there's only 2 political parties in the United States. There's conservatives and there's communists. There is nothing else. Anybody who in any way, shape, or form even thinks in their mind Black Lives Matter has a point, they're communists. Now, we stopped them here in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. 1,600 of us, armed men and women, went downtown Coeur d'Alene and stopped them from coming in. The police liked it because they could run the perimeter, and they captured different guys who were coming in with weapons and rocks and that kind of crap. But we stopped them. And I have friends now. These people are going everywhere. Every little town, they're going. And they're going to be doing all kinds of stuff. I've been on the air now for 24 years or something, and I'm finding myself more and more having to tell people about this political crap that we have to go through now. And I was the third person to go to the meet to stand up against BLM here in North Idaho. And after an hour, I turned to my friend. I said, the cost of freedom is eternal vigilance, isn't it? And it had never struck me what that meant, ever. It's a lot of damn work. We're standing guard for 4 to 8 hours in the heat, and we've got to make sure that the pinheads in society are protected from these people that they claim have a point. And it's to the point that, we're going to have to let some of these places burn. We're going to have to stand back, and we'll do. You read the book Atlas Shrugged, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we need to stand back and let the world shrug.
Okay, so Zero Hedge has been demonetized by Google, and they've got a quote. They've got a quote exactly what you're talking about, and the Atlanta police are saying the opposite. Quote, the article says, earlier suggestions that multiple officers from each zone had walked off the job were inaccurate. The department is experiencing higher than usual number of call-outs with the incoming shift. We have enough resources to maintain operations and remain able to respond to incidents. Released by Atlanta Police Department. So
yeah, that was released last night about 10 o'clock to CNN.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's pure BS. That's pure propaganda.
That's what we've been saying here at USA Prepares. You can read articles that are pro and con, whatever the issue is, at the same time. And then it's even worse than that. It's hard to tell the truth. Then and right now you can read within the same articles, pro and con.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's very confusing.
Communication is one of the areas that has to be controlled for a total takeover. And you know how Facebook and Google and Twitter, and all of these high-tech things purposely do two things. One, they restrict what an American can say, what a conservative can say, and two, they promote communism. Now, I mentioned Reddit. One of the biggest subreddit on Reddit was the Donald. It's all about Trump, of course. They canceled it. They hid it. They are purposely restricting what we can see, and it's the truth. You know, you hear from one person who says, hey, I heard from my third uncle who was dating this woman. You know, you hear all this third-party information. But if you go on to Reddit, you can see the person who it's happening to talk about it. And they don't want that.
Yeah, we'll be right back with Kurt Wilson, the armchairsurvivalist.com. Kurt Wilson's with us, the armchair survivalist, broadcaster, well-known broadcaster throughout the world. And I am proud to be his friend. And I am proud to have him as my friend. And we think so much alike, and we've never met each other. And I have a feeling that his son was raised in a very similar fashion to the way our sons were raised. And here's what happened, Kurt. So a guy came up to the gate. We have a long driveway. You can't see the house from the gate, the road gate. We live on a dirt road. This guy came up who we knew, a middle-aged guy, and he stopped our son who was baling hay. Our son, got off the tractor, walked over to the gate. And the guy wanted us to vote for a particular person within the area. And our son said, we don't vote. The guy said, like, you don't vote? And I'm paraphrasing all this. And he said, no, we don't vote because our mailbox gets bashed, it gets stolen, people around here stab us in the back. No, we know what it's like. We know who these people are. We're not going to vote for any of them. And so then the guy said, what about Laclede Electric? Are you, is your dad going to run for the director's position? And our son reluctantly, didn't really answer the question on purpose. So then this guy said to our son, well, what about if they come to your house? Meaning, these BLM protesters. What if they come to your house? And our son said to him, I don't think they'll make it that far.
See, I would have looked at him and said, you see that tractor? That's what that's for. It's to dig holes.
Well, I've said that on the air. I've said things like, we've got a backhoe. We have an outdoor wood furnace that has a 4 foot by 5 foot firebox. Might have to use a chainsaw, make everything fit, but it'll fit.
Yeah, and that's where it's going to have to go. I hate to say this.
I went to the Farmers Cooperative years ago, and I said, and they know me there. I mean, everybody knows me. And I said, y'all sell hydrated lime, right? And they said, yeah. Said, 50-pound bags? Yeah. Can I buy some? Uh-huh. Now, hydrated lime, class, if you don't, know what it's for, it works really well when you sprinkle it on dead things. And it helps, yeah. It kills the odor. So, if you have some rotting flesh, you just sprinkle some hydrated lime on there and, you can't smell it for miles as you might be able to if you didn't spread that hydrated lime on there.
We used it in the outhouse.
Well, they did it in the Philippines too during World War II when the American military went to liberate the Philippines. There were dead bodies everywhere, and that's where I learned about it because my dad was involved in the liberation of the Philippines during World War II, and he said, "Vinny, you will never forget the smell of rotting flesh." And that's what the Army did because there were so many dead bodies. So, when you do things like that by hydrated lime and you have a big outdoor firebox and you have a bulldozer and a backhoe and you say, yeah, it's okay. I've got a backhoe. People slowly understand what you're trying to tell them, and people leave us alone. You know that? Other than our mailbox, they don't get any closer than that. That's as close as they get.
Well, I'll tell you, and I'm old enough that I've seen communists take over at other countries. And I worked for people who escaped other countries that turned communist. What we're seeing right now, and this is worldwide, okay? What we're going through in the United States is happening all over the world. This is a major push by communists to take over many parts of the world. First thing to do is eradicate all history. That's why these psychos want to tear down all these statues. And they want to rename all kinds of things. Remember, two political parties, conservative and communist. And that'll encompass every single person in the United States. You get people who say, oh, I'm not political, but I think Black Lives Matter have a point. Well, that's a communist. You have these, they call themselves Democrats or progressives in the Congress and in the House, and you see them on TV. They're communists because they want the complete destruction, eradication of everything American and put it back into a gender-neutral communist state. It's exactly what they want. Which brings me to a point. I don't understand how they can do a gender neutral now, because these communists have dreamed up 126 genders.
Yeah. Hey, Kurt, do you remember a guy by the name of Nikita Khrushchev back in 1959, and he pounded on the desk at the UN and he said, "We will bury you." And he was a communist without firing a shot.
Yeah,
he
and
said,
that's what's happening.
"We will bury you," without firing a shot. And it looks like they're trying to do that. We'll be right back with Kurt Wilson. We're going to play a clip about the police when we come back. It's only 2 minutes. I'd like Kurt to hear it. He probably has heard it, but I'd like the class to hear it. And then we can talk a little bit about, respect and the police. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Kurt Wilson's with us. And Jason's got an audio clip from Daily Mail. It's 2 minutes. And it is about, and the article says it's this Georgia woman named Stacy. She's claiming to be a 15-year veteran of the force. That would be the police force. And so this cop videos herself whining at the drive-thru at McDonald's. And during this video, which you'll hear as an audio, she says, "Please give us," meaning cops, "a break. If you see an officer, just say thank you." So as a result of this, you might want to, if you're ever in Georgia And if you need a cop, you might want to request her assistance. Jason, would you please play this audio?
I decided to come to the McDonald's at Love's on the Ford Avenue exit, and I waited in line to get my food. I had already done my mobile order so that, people don't pay for my stuff, because I just always like to pay for it myself. But I'm on my way home from work. When I pull up to the window, they hand me my receipt, so I go to the second window to get my food, and I'm waiting. And I'm waiting. And I'm waiting. And so the girl comes to the window and asks me what my order was. I repeat my order and my coffee order. And they asked me to pull up because my food's not ready. It's an English muffin meal with a hash brown and coffee. And, I hadn't eaten since probably I've been up for a very long time, but I haven't eaten in a while, so I was kind of hungry. And I'm still waiting. And I'm still waiting. And they asked me to pull up. And so I pull up forward, and a girl comes out with my coffee, and just the coffee. And she hands it to me, and I have my window down. And that's all she hands me is the coffee. So I told her, I said, don't bother with the food, because right now I'm too nervous to take it. It doesn't matter how many hours I've been up. It doesn't matter what I've done for anyone. Right now I'm too nervous to take a meal from McDonald's, because I can't see it being made. I don't know what's going on with people nowadays, but please, just give us a break. Please just give us a break. I don't know how much more I can take. I've been in this for 15 years, and I've never, ever had such anxiety about waiting for McDonald's drive-thru food. So just have a heart, and if you see an officer, just tell them thank you. Because I don't hear thank you enough anymore.
So that was the audio of the video that was on Daily Mail. And there is a alleged police officer, allegedly 15 years on the force, melting down because her food wasn't ready at McDonald's. Now, how many times have, you gone to a food joint, through a drive-thru, and they said, tell you what, we're making it. Just pull over there, and we'll bring it out to you. Well, instead of just bringing it out to them, they brought out what they had ready first. And then the rest of it was coming. But that wasn't good enough. We had to melt down. So if you are in Georgia, and if you want, to get that kind of person to respond to your need, just ask for Stacy. I can't believe it. Kurt, any comments?
Look, right now, I wouldn't want to be a cop in the United States for anything, because you're not going to win. There are lots and lots of stories coming out. You'll see the mainstream media crap that you'll find all over the internet, and then you start delving down into these Reddits, these subreddits, and these threads on the internet where people go to talk about real life, or you go to some place called 4chan. This is the real stuff, okay? And you will find these creatures out there who brag about how they hocked a loogie into the cop's coffee, or put a dead goldfish inside of a sandwich, or did all kinds of stuff. I stopped reading. One, my son sent me to this area. You can't just go there. You have to have security. I have 5 different security systems on my computer when I go there. And I look at this stuff, and I see all this crap, and it's like the anxiety that law enforcement is suffering from right now is going to backfire hard. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Every day, we have a store in Hayden, Idaho. It's called Survival Enterprise. You can find us online, Survival Enterprise. And I sell a type of CBD that I design, and usually we get these millennials that come in and say, well, I have anxiety. And so I, sell them some CBD oil for that because it helps with that. I'm getting law enforcement, probation department, sheriff's department coming in, and they don't want to take the drugs. The police department's more than happy to send them out to a shrink who'll give them Prozac or some other crap. But they don't want to take any of that stuff, so they'll come in and they get CBD, and then they'll go on. This is getting ridiculous. And my whole show last week was on teaching people how to recognize these creatures as they come into their area. And I'm going to tell your audience the same as I told mine. Everybody's got a gun collection, all right? Everybody has, like I got 14 rifles, 12 shotguns, and 18 pistols. Find one that you like. Find one that you're comfortable with, that you can really use, and oil it, wipe it down, and load it, because you're going to need it. I don't give a damn where you are. You're going to need it. I don't know. I can get off on this stuff, but you wanted,
Kurt, how about this? How about this old saying? Fear the man who has just one gun, because he knows how to use it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Because he knows how to use it.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who have a lot of guns. Rifle, pistols, shotgun, revolvers. And, they have different safeties. Some are left, some are right, some are ambidextrous, some have hammers, some are hammerless, the different slide releases. There are a lot of different mechanisms. So if you've got to remember a whole bunch of them, it's difficult. But the guy who's got one, he knows where the safety is, he knows where the trigger is, he knows how the sights work, and he knows how to use it. Yep. So that's what that's all about.
You asked me about what's going on financially with our company.
I don't necessarily mean, private information, but what I'm talking about is, generally speaking, what is happening in the world of people like you and me?
Okay. So the big tech companies are monitoring and correcting all of us conservatives, deleting stuff, not allowing posting. They're very careful how they allow things to be posted so that people don't get to see what really is going on. They only get to see their idea of reality. That's not shutting down conservatives fast enough. Now, my company, we've been in business 35 years, and we've been attacked by every single agency. Pick an agency, and it's attacked us. It's because, number one, I got a radio show and a big mouth. And number two, I was the founder of the Stanislaus County Militia. We had almost 3,000 members. So I'm not a lightweight in this area. Well, they've not won in 35 years. They've not won. They fail every single time. So the deep state, which is, remember, two parts. There's conservatives, there's communists. So the communists discovered the back door to shutting down conservative businesses. It's called a financial institution. 2 years ago, we started to have problems running credit cards. And it started to get to the point where the people's cards were being declined, and then people would get upset. Finally, one day they canceled my ability to take credit cards. And I asked my bank representative, I said, what the hell's going on? He goes, I don't know. They won't tell me. They just say, we can't take these credit cards anymore. So we went to another bank, and we got set up. After a few months, they canceled us. So I'm trying to figure what the hell's going on. Now, if you're a crook and you're laundering money, then they will put you on what's called a match list. And if you are on that match list, then nobody will take your credit cards. Nobody will allow you to take credit cards. So we're not on the match list. And then finally, we took Square, right? Square Up, a little thing that it's idiot proof. And we're taking Square, and my birthday was December 10th. On December 10th, I'm swiping a card from a customer buying in my store, and the machine shuts down. That is not a coincidence. I don't care what anyone says. It shuts down. And my wife calls Square, and they say, I'm sorry, we can no longer talk to you because you don't have an account with us. I go, wait a minute, we have an account. Not anymore. So they shut us down. We could not take credit cards. I got a big website. I saw all kinds of stuff, and now we can only take checks we can take checks over the phone. We're authorized to do that. But that puts a time lag on you getting your product. So we have been trying since December of last year to get somebody to sign us up to take credit cards. My wife has broke her butt trying to get this done. And she has applied to 8 different companies. And these companies are what's called high-risk companies. We don't know what the hell for, but nobody else will talk to us. And these high-risk companies require that we run over $50,000 a month through their credit card service. We don't do that. We do maybe 20 to 25,000. We're not a big company. So half of them won't sign us up. The other half want to charge us $100 to $500 a month just to have the service, and then 6% of every charge that we get. So we're not alone. There's a bunch of different places. I've talked to a dozen other conservative businesses in the state of Idaho that are doing it, and they're suffering the same thing. And we have no idea how or why. We have no idea. There's no verifiable proof that it's even happening. It's just that we're almost out of business. So this is what's happening to me, and this is what's happening to conservatives all throughout the United States.
Yeah, and the way it manifests for us is we get knocked off the air. We're broadcasting. I've got a screen that shows the connectivity, and all of a sudden, blue bars, like every second or so, and all of a sudden it goes red, and I'm off the air. It happens all the time. Finally figured out, and I'll give you the secret number. If you have CenturyLink communications, if you get knocked off, this is the number for their loyalty department. And what I do is every time I get knocked off the internet, I call them up and I demand $50 credit. And I get it. We haven't paid our phone bill in months because, seriously, 1 month we got over a $200 credit because they've knocked me off the air so many times. So here's the number. They don't want you to know this. So here it is. Now only use this if you have a bona fide reason. Okay. Don't waste this number. Don't waste this. 866-270-7498. 866-270-7498. That is the number to the loyalty department. That bypasses all the questions that you get, like, what's your, last 4 of your social security number and what are you calling about, and all the automated responses. That's the one. But it only works for CenturyLink, okay? And only use it if you have a bona fide claim. And that's all I use it for. Kurt, so we have been hammered. A number of our instructors have said, geez, their views are down on their, on the internet. The monetization is down or it's been shut down. What they put on the internet has been changed. I even stopped, posting on, my website, usaprepares.com. And the reason is I would get beat up every day. Here we are volunteering, sharing information, and then we get beat up every single day. And then on the YouTube videos that Ron Gibson would put up, this broadcast is going to be on Ron Gibson's channel on YouTube. We would get hammered. We would be trashed. My wife, my parents, our boys we'd all be trashed. And my wife has nothing to do with the broadcast other than answering the phone when I'm not here sometimes. She'll take messages for me. Other than that, she's not on the air with me. And she gets
you
trashed.
Understand, it's got nothing to do with you or me. It has to do with the contractors that are hired to be trolls. These aren't real people.
No, I understand that. I understand that. And I would like to, have a chat with them one day. And I'm thinking about bringing my buddy Lucille with me.
Yeah. You're going to bring Guido, huh?
Well, Lucille, if you've seen The Walking Dead,
Yeah.
Lucille is, this really bad actor in the video, or the series. His name is Negan, and he teaches people quickly. He doesn't waste a lot of time. He'll go up to a group of people and explain the way it's going to be and how he's going to take half of whatever they've got. And if they don't seem to get it right away, he calls, Lucille, and Lucille is this baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire. And, so he has a chat with them, and usually blood everywhere. And, usually takes just one or two people meeting Lucille to get the message across to the whole gang.
Yeah. Well,
we're at the point where there's, why would anybody accept a job as a thug like that, with immunity and impunity? Why would anybody accept a job like that? Yeah.
Okay. Now I have a chat room, and I have the ability to backtrack IP addresses. So when somebody comes in there and starts their crap, I can find out, and then I have other ways to do this also. We were having all kinds of different people come into the chat room. I mean, I would have 100 people or more in the chat room during my show. And there's always at least one in there that was saying all kinds of stuff, insulting people, just doing all kinds of crap. And I tracked them back, two of them I tracked back to a building in Orange County. This is a building that has no windows in it. You can see it on Google Maps. So I tracked it back, and it's in that building. So I called a friend of mine who actually lives about a mile from there. I said, go to that building. Tell me what goes in there. And he went to that building, and he talked to the security guard up front, just nonchalantly, and the security guard said, oh, this is a call room. We handle telephone calls for different congressmen and different government agencies. It's no big deal, And he said he offered him a job. He said he could make $20 an hour just sitting on his ass making phone calls.
Kurt Wilson's with us. In California, the officials there have announced the removal of Christopher Columbus statue from the state capitol, saying it's the image of the deeply polarizing historical figure, and it's out of place today. Well, I've got a comment. I'd love to hear Kurt Wilson's thoughts on this as well. So, Thomas Jefferson was a slave owner, founding father. George Washington owned slaves too. Christopher Columbus committed atrocities against American Indians. However, no one did what Christopher Columbus did. I mean, he sailed thousands of miles and not seeing land for months. It must have been terrifying. So from that perspective, this guy absolutely was a hero, a one-of-a-kind hero. Absolutely, nerves of steel. Now, did he commit atrocities? Yes, he did. But that's history. Okay? The good and the bad is history. So if we are removing, if they are removing statues and monuments, to people like Christopher Columbus and George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson and other men of history like that. If we're going to do that, then don't you think we should remove, let's say the Washington Monument, 555.5 feet tall? Maybe Abraham Lincoln's monument at the Capitol. And maybe, if we're going to do all that, then maybe we should rename Washington, D.C. to something else. I don't know, like Britney Spearsville. Because Washington, D.C. is named after George Washington, and the District of Columbia would be Christopher Columbus. Now, of course, I'm just using a little bit of humor here, but this whole thing is nuts.
No, you're not.
Statues.
You're not using humor. You're reading from CNN's playbook. Because they actually came out with an article that said, okay, this is what has to change in America for racism to be eradicated. So code word for American is racism. Is racist. See, that's how they work this out. Actually, District of Columbia wasn't named after Christopher Columbus. It was picked out of the hat because they had to create this foreign nation to rule America, and that's what Washington D.C. is. A District of Columbia was named from a Central American country. It's hogwash. It's another story, another time. Anyway, they want to. All communist takeovers have to do one thing: they have to eradicate all history. So yes, they're taking down all these statues. Now, it's a double-edged sword, because on one side of the sword, they're taking down all these statues of Democrats. Those are all Democrats. The Robert E. Lee and the Confederate people. On the other hand, they're not just taking down them, they're taking down everything. In New Mexico, they wanted to remove a statue of a famous Spaniard. It had nothing to do with Columbus. So they have to eradicate all history. This is the standard operating procedure for all communist takeovers every place on earth. They eradicate the history so that our children will not know the truth. And as the saying goes, history is written by the winners. So that's what they're doing. They're rewriting history. They're rewriting everything that has to do with sanity. It's not
so
just
Kurt Wilson,
the history.
So, Kurt Wilson, since this is USA Prepares, what do we do? What do we, the villagers, who just want to live in peace, who just want to do what we do to earn a living, be productive, be honest, have integrity, what do people like us do? Do we just keep our heads down and prepare, and because we're too insignificant to make a difference? What do we do? Just protect our families, get the supplies that we need? I mean, that's what we're doing. We're just preparing to go through this without being on the front lines.
There is no go through it. There is no front lines. This is this is how communists work. They infiltrate every section of your society. Your schools are already infiltrated. They're already being taught communist viewpoints and globalism. So you can go way up in the mountains somewhere and live up there, but you're going to find out that when you come down to buy something, you don't have the mark of the beast. You're not going to be able to purchase. You'll have no funds. No, we don't take cash anymore. Don't you have your EBT card? It's the cost of freedom is eternal vigilance. It's a pain in the ass, but we have to do it. We're going to have to stand and say no. And this is what they have been working on for over 100 years, is to eradicate the ability, willingness, and the training in America for children to grow up, to be able to stand up and say no. You know, this is they've been working on this for over 100 years. So we've lost 5 generations of Americans to the propaganda. They're very slow, they're very methodical, and you can find this out by simply going out in the street and talking to people. You will find people who have no convictions. They believe everything they're told, and they are pure sheeple. You can hide for a while, but it is going to come at you. The best thing to do is to stand and say no. And that standing and saying no, you're going to end up having to fight your neighbor. You're going to end up having to fight your family, friends, because they've fallen for the propaganda.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've lost friends over this. I really have. Saying no. For example, one thing that I absolutely refuse to back down from is the homosexual agenda. I think it's absolutely perverted and wrong. And some people are saying, well, yeah, it's just different. You know, it's not right or wrong, it's just different. I think it's perverted. I think it's vulgar. I think it's wrong. And I won't allow homos in our home. and I take a stand on it. But I have lost friends over that, literally, because they think, well, that's really being quite prejudiced. Okay.
No, it's part of the plan.
So it is.
That's part of the plan. Every facet of what makes a man or a woman a real soul has to be destroyed. This sexual perversion it's a psychiatric problem. It really is. It's a mental aberration, and the more you promote it and spread it and teach it, like they're teaching it in our public schools, starting at kindergarten, the more people are going to accept it. Conservatism is, unfortunately, it's like water. Water takes the path of least resistance. So does communism. Conservatism doesn't. You have to fight to be a conservative. You have to. Anybody can be a communist. Just relax your guard, and there, you're done. Believe everything you're told, it's done. Violate all of common sense, violate reality, violate truth, violate facts, and boom, you're a commie. And my wife goes to visit her family. She has 8 people in her family every year, and I refuse to go because out of the 8 people, 6 of them are communists.
Our son was talking with a young gal, and she had, mechanical problems with things, and she would say to our son, what do I do? And he'd tell her how to fix it. And then she'd have another problem, and he'd tell her how to fix it. And eventually she said to him, is there anything you don't know how to fix? And he said, yeah, I don't know how to work well with homos.
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm paraphrasing, but I mean,
I was a counselor in Hollywood for a couple of years, and I actually counseled sexual perverts, and every single one of them, I don't care what they say, they're not gay. It's the opposite of that. Every single one of them has other mental problems and are very sad people. They know that something innately is wrong, no matter how many of their peers acknowledge that. Oh yeah. You want to have sex with a goat? Well, that's okay. That's your right. It says so in the Constitution. And so just go ahead and do what you want to do. They're not happy people. They are disease-ridden, male and female. This is again, we're going back to this until 1968. By the way, homosexuality was a known mental problem, and psychiatrists were trained on how to help people go through it. And then everything changed, and the APA, American Psychiatric Association, changed it to being from a mental aberration, a mental problem, to a choice. They actually said it's a choice. You can choose to do that. But I don't know. Everything that
so can you unchoose it? Can you unchoose it?
Yes, you can. You can. The choice. The problem is, in the beginning, it was. When I say beginning, I'm talking about the psychiatric institutions were trained to help people during the from 1900 up to 1950 or 60. And basically what you would do is you would find the moment where they have to be trained. And it's always based on drugs, pain, and sex. And they would be trained. You can untrain that. But now it's taught in school, and they do it in an insidious manner. They start small. They're saying, look, here, let's read this book today. John has 2 fathers. And tomorrow we'll read Mary has 2 mothers. So they desensitize against the psychosis. And then they start promoting the psychosis more and more and more. They do it in small gradient steps. And before you know it, you've got a class of 13-year-old lesbians. I've seen this. I actually taught at Bishop Manogue All Girls Catholic High School. in Sacramento, and I could not believe it. When I was there was like 28 females in there, and 20 of them identified as lesbian. This is the school system.
Do you think there's a correlation with tattoos and homosexuality? Do you think there's a link there?
No, but there is a link to something else.
Okay. Can you share with us what that link is when we come back?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then maybe your prescription, recommendation, advice, and counsel as to what we should do in terms of how do we get to the end of this. Well, we might not live to see the end of it, but in terms of preparedness. Class, tomorrow we're going to be talking about appliance repair with Kevin in Florida. That's hour number 1. Hour number 2, we're going to be talking about money-saving tips for homemakers with Kathy in Ohio. Kurt Wilson's with us, thearmchairsurvivalist.com. Kurt, we're talking about, is there a link between tattoos and homosexuality? And you said there's something else. What was that?
Yeah. Sailors have always had tattoos for 1,000 years.
Uh-huh.
It was just tradition. During the 60s, a lot of the hippies went to foreign nations like Bangladesh and India, and one of the things that was prevalent in the I don't know how to put this nicely in the lower forms of society in Asian countries is that the prostitutes, the whores, they would have tattoos, and it was a means of bragging of how good they are and how much money they could make. Well, just as enjoying that concept of artwork, it was brought back to the United States. And you would start seeing females going into these tattoo parlors in the U.S., and the tattoo artists there were, first, they didn't want to do any tattoos, and we're talking in the 60s or in the 70s, they didn't want to do any tattoos on women at all because it was dishonorable. But then they started to realize that these women are just as bad prostitutes or whores as was overseas, so why not? So it started to become more acceptable. But the tattoos basically explain the type of morals that person has. Now, yes, it's a double standard. Males can have all the tattoos they want, and they're not considered whores. Women do that, there is no ifs, ands, or buts. What they're doing is proclaiming their lack of morals. In fact, it even got to a point where a woman would have what's called a tramp stamp, which is a tattoo on the small of her back. That was if you wanted to know if she was a whore, if she has one of those, no ifs, ands, or buts. She has one. She is. So it's turned into an example of the lack of morals for females. Males, it's kind of different, but also this society, the tattoo society, is a heavy drug society. The funny thing is that the building that Survival Enterprises is in right now used to be a tattoo parlor. And the first year we were in this building on Government Way, we have a side door, and we get knocks on the side door. And these women would show up there with tattoos all over and half their teeth missing because they're meth heads. And they'd want to know where the tattoo guy was. And finally I called up the sheriff's department and said, why the hell are we getting all of these crackheads? And they explained to us, well, that's what they are. Tattoo parlors are synonymous with drug dealers throughout the United States. And it's not really homosexual. Yes, they might get there might be some specialized tattoos to let you know that this guy is a switch hitter or this woman or whatever, but I don't know. I do know the other things that I.
So, Kurt, what do we do?
What you do
What do we
is very
do?
simple.
Most Americans believe.
You're going
Most
to
Americans
have
believe Civil War.
Americans believe that they can survive, and we always have, no matter what it is. But you have to use some common sense. You have to be armed. You have to have plenty of ammunition. You have to be not just able to use your weapon, but willing to if you have to. So that comes in with morals. You lack morals, you become a dangerous person. You need to have food, and that's easy to do. I don't know. Do you have Winco where you are?
Do we have Winco?
Yeah.
Well, no.
The store. It's a store. You know, Sam Club.
No, we do not.
Winco, Costco. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Sam's Club, sure.
Okay. All right. So it's simple. You know, you buy beans and you find out, go on YouTube. It'll show you how to pack beans up. You know, Mylar bags, in a 5-gallon food grade bucket and oxygen absorbers, and boom, they're good for up to 25 years or something like that. Beans and rice. Those are the basics. And you store them where it's cool, not humid, and where it's stabilized temperature. Like, don't store it in your garage. You want to store food. I mean, this is a whole show on the storing food thing. If you go to armchairsurvivalist.com on the left-hand side, there's a link that says Food Storage 101. It gives you some basics. But you can add anything to beans. You can add anything to rice. If you just have the basics there, I mean, you can go shoot a squirrel, chop it up, and add it to beans and rice, and you got protein, and you can survive. But it's a lot of common sense, and that you have to have your morals straight.
Absolutely. I'm in total agreement with you. And get your garden and get your water preparations and how you're going to get water. Because I believe that we're going to have a long, hot summer. And I also believe that with that long, hot summer, there are going to be grid brownouts, blackouts, outages, refrigeration problems, which will escalate the violence.